Kurt Busch says he's already had discussions with Justin Marks in Trackhouse Racing. Eric Jones' future is uncertain with Richard Petty Motorsports at the moment for 2022. And Denny Hamlin says the hunt for a charter will not be affected by Trackhouse's purchase of Chip Ganassi Racing in NASCAR. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. We got quite a few NASCAR stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go and just jump straight into it very, very quickly. We're going to start off with the New Hampshire Xfinity Series race, as they have a title sponsor officially. Their title sponsor is going to be called the Ambetter Bet Vaccinated 200. That's going to be taking place here in a couple of weeks. Really, really cool to see that Ambetter is going to be sponsoring the New Hampshire race. Ambetter, I think, is a very, very solid company. We've known Ambetter for quite some time. So I think it's really cool that Ambetter is getting involved in NASCAR. And overall, it is great that Ambetter will be sponsoring the upcoming race here. And it's great to see that news overall for sure. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Tripp Bruce. As Tripp Bruce is going to be crew chief for Jessica Friesen at Knoxville Raceway. Tripp Bruce has, up till a couple weeks ago, has been crew chiefing for Stuart Friesen, but John Leonard is now currently the crew chief, or Joe Leonard is currently the crew chief right now for Stuart Friesen, so Tripp Bruce is going to be crew chief. He's basically been the competition guy over at that team, which he took the place from Joe or John Leonard, and basically he's taken over, and he'll be crew chiefing for Jessica Friesen. I think Tripp Bruce has done a very, very good job as a crew chief over the last couple years. I think he's going to have really helped Jessica Friesen get her first race. She would have been able to probably make her first race at Bristol, but unfortunately due to rain issues, that kind of cost her an opportunity to even have a chance to overall qualify for it. So it's really good to see that Tripp Bruce is getting an opportunity to crew chief once again, and I think he'll overall help Jessica Friesen make the NASCAR Truck Series and make her NASCAR Truck Series debut. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode. We are talking about Hendrick Motorsports and Rick Hendrick. Rick Hendrick came out in an interview a couple weeks ago, and he said that he supports Kyle Larson's drive to race dirt. He said, the one thing that Cliff has told me is that Kyle spends as much time or more as any driver at the shop. If he wants to race and still has that as a priority, racing is all he thinks about, and he digs, and he digs, and he digs. I'm fine with it. I think that this makes a lot of sense for Rick Hendrick to support Kyle Larson's opportunity to race in dirt, considering, in the past, Rick Hendrick really never supported racing dirt because Casey Kane almost, I believe, got injured back in 2011 in a crash in World of Outlaws, and he wasn't really happy with Casey Kane after that. But I think that he's really been open to change, and I think over the years he's been open to change. He's let Chase Elliott race in the Chili Bowl and other dirt races in the past, and other dirt races, and he's also let other drivers like Alex Holman race in dirt and like the Chili Bowl as well. So I think what Kyle Larson's also been able to do, not just in NASCAR, but he's been able to do in like late models and sprint cars and oatmeal cars and all that stuff, I think it's been really, really impressive and really, really incredible to watch. And to me, I think it makes a lot of sense for him to be able to go out there and support Kyle Larson and what he's been able to do. And I'm really happy that Rick Hendrick does support him. I think that shows that Rick Hendrick's a guy that believes in Kyle Larson regardless. And I think Larson's priorities are still in NASCAR, don't get me wrong, but I think it's cool that Rick Hendrick is supporting Kyle Larson overall. And it's definitely overall some very exciting news for sure. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Devon Rouse. As Devon Rouse is making his NASCAR Truck Series debut at Knoxville this weekend here for Rayum Brothers Racing. Devon Rouse was supposed to make his NASCAR Truck Series debut at Bristol Dirt, but unfortunately, due to the situation of basically having family issues and sponsorship problems, he was not able to make his debut for Bristol Dirt. Now, a lot of you probably also know the backstory. Devon Rouse was the first openly gay NASCAR driver to the sport, so the inclusivity of NASCAR is really cool to see that Devon Rouse is getting that opportunity. I think Devon Rouse overall is a very solid driver. Overall, do think that Devon Rouse is going to bring a lot to the team. I think that car will have to qualify for the event, so he's going to have to try to qualify into the races, but I think he'll have a very good shot of doing it. I really hope he does get that opportunity to make it into his first ever Truck Series event. I really would like to see him make that event for sure, and hopefully he'll be able to lock himself in from qualifying and be able to make it into the show. And I'm really happy that Devon Rouse is getting finally an opportunity to race in the Truck Series. Hopefully he'll do very well this weekend here at Knoxville on Friday night. And now we're going to go and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Atlanta Motor Speedway. As we are talking, now we haven't really talked much about the cooler and the water situation. Over the last couple weeks, there's been a lot of issues when it comes to water, and NASCAR has been having an issue when it comes to cooler situations. We all saw Randy the Plumbers. We saw what he was not very happy about that, but we've got an update in regards to Atlanta Motor Speedway. It's going to be very, very warm at Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. So, Atlanta Motor Speedway has made the decision overall to have cheaper water and cold beer at the racetrack as well. It's going to be $3 for water bottles, of course, and $4 for beer. They're also going to be allowing one cooler that's 14 by 14 by 14. First of all, I think it's really great that they're finally letting coolers back into at least. I think I don't know if this is SMI track or IC track. I'm not sure. But I think it's cool that they are at least allowing coolers. And yes, $3 for water. I mean, that's kind of reasonable, to be honest with you. You can get some of those back packets for $2. I think it's a lot cheaper what Texas was offering, because I think they were offering, what, like $6 or $7 for water, something like that, from some of the other tracks. And I think a lot more money as well. I think $3 is arguably pretty reasonable when it comes to the price of water. So that's great. But I'm really happy that they are at least are allowing coolers. And I think that a lot of fans are going to be happy. I think a lot of fans are really frustrated with Nashville not allowing coolers and other tracks like Texas not allowing coolers. So I think it's great to see that overall that Atlanta is going to be offering that opportunity to allow coolers into the racetrack. I'm really happy that they're doing that overall for sure. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Brett Moffitt. As Brett Moffitt is making his NASCAR Truck Series return here this weekend at Knoxville, driving the number 37 for AM Motorsports. Really great to see that Brett Moffitt is coming back and racing into Truck Series. Brett Moffitt's been mainly focused on the NASCAR Xfinity Series, driving into the 02 car for our Motorsports. He's raced earlier this year for Nice Motorsports, but he made the decision overall to basically race in the Xfinity Series, decided to declare for points over there. He should have done that at the beginning of the year, but he basically decided later this early around, I think, Kansas weekend or something like that, he decided to declare for the NASCAR Xfinity Series points. So really great that he's getting an opportunity. That's also his hometown race. He's coming back to Iowa this year, which I think is really awesome to see that he's coming back and racing. I think Brett Moffitt, honestly, will have a very good shot of contending. I think he's ran really well in the past at Eldora, and also ran at Bristol, and he had a decent run going there as well. So I think that Brett Moffitt is going to bring a lot to this AM Motorsports team. This car will have to qualify in, because this car does not have any owners points coming in. But I'm definitely thinking that Brett Moffitt will have a very good shot. He's a very solid dirt racer from what I remember, and I think it'll be great to see he's come back, and I'm very happy that Brett Moffitt is coming back and racing in the Truck Series here later this year, and actually this weekend here at Knoxville. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode. We are talking about Morgan Alexander. As Morgan Alexander is making his NASCAR Truck Series debut at Knoxville, driving the number 44 for Nice Motorsports. I don't know really much about Morgan Alexander, to be honest with you. I've heard his name in the past. I think he's a guy that has raced in sprint cars in the past. So I think this is a cool opportunity. I'm not surprised that they have decided to pair him up with Nice Motorsports, but I think this will be a very comparable truck for him. And I think that if he can run up front, so we've seen Carlos Sospar be able to make the playoffs, he's contending for the playoffs in the Truck Series here. You never know. We've seen some standout stars come out from the Dirt Series. Guys like Bobby Pierce have come here. Guys like Rico Brew. Chris Reval got his first career Truck Series win. You never know what's going to happen in these events. So I think this is a really cool opportunity for sure. Glad to see Morgan Alexander is getting an opportunity. And I'm not sure going to be putting any expectations on him. I've really never heard of him. But I think it's a cool opportunity that he's going to be racing at Knoxville. And great to see that a guy that we don't know much about is making his NASCAR Truck Series debut here at Knoxville. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode. As we are talking about Parker Price Miller. As Parker Price Miller is making his NASCAR Truck Series debut in Knoxville, driving the number 3 for Jordan Anderson Racing. Now, I've heard of Parker Price Miller, and this guy is a very solid dirt racer. And I like what Jordan Anderson Racing has been doing this year by picking up some very surprising drivers to get an opportunity to race. I think Parker Price Miller is a very solid choice for the Jordan Anderson race team, considering this car has enough owners points to basically make it into the show every weekend. He's not going to have as many issues with qualifying into the event. So I think that this is a great opportunity for Parker Price Miller. I think if he's able to 100% make the show, I think he'll have a shot at contending for a top 20, help the street in the owners points situation, because I think that Jordan is more focused on the Xfinity Series program, the Truck Series program, and I think that's why their performance has been fantastic, but they do have enough owners points to basically make it every single race. So it's great to see overall for sure that he's making his NASCAR Truck Series opportunity, and hopefully he'll run extremely well here coming up here really soon. I'm going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Hailie Deegan. As according to a report from Hookit Racing, it says that Hailie Deegan ranks number 1 in sponsorship value for female athletes. According to a database that came out this past weekend, it's actually true. According to that database, it says that she is ranked number 1. I'm honestly extremely surprised that she is ranked number 1. Ahead of people like Serena Williams, Allison Phoenix, according with the Olympics. A lot of other people. I'm extremely surprised that she is number 1. But Hailie Deegan has an incredible social media presence. If you look at her following on Instagram, it's over, I believe, 1 million on Instagram. She has a ton of followers on TikTok, like 1 million followers on TikTok. Her YouTube channel has like 300,000 subscribers. The Deegan family channel has over 1 million subscribers. So she does have a lot of sponsorship value. And we've talked about reports in the past that companies and sponsors won a sponsor, not for her racing crap, but for her social media, because she is very, very popular on social media. So I think it's really cool for sure that she is ranked number one. Honestly, a little bit surprised. A lot of people like Serena Williams, who were really, really popular on social media, and other female athletes like other individuals, I thought that she would be a little bit lower, but I'm really surprised, to be honest, that she is overall is number one when it comes to sponsorship value. But I think that's overall really, really cool for sure that she is ranked number one, and maybe she'll get other sponsors that can sponsor on her social medias and her YouTube channels. I'm not sure, to be honest, but I think this is really, really cool and great opportunity that she is ranked number one in sponsorship value. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story in today's episode. We're talking about the Super Speedway package for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. It was reported by Bob Pockers on, I believe, Wednesday afternoon that NASCAR will slow down Xfinity Series cars slightly at Daytona and Talladega. They will go down from a 7/8 spoil, which is 28:32s, to 27:30 seconds. Honestly, I don't know why they're reducing the spoiler for the Xfinity Series. You can't even bump draft in there, so I think that this is overall going to hurt the racing overall for the Xfinity Series. I think it's been better this year overall, but you can't bump draft at the end. You can't lock bumpers, so that is the thing I wish they would allow back in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I'm not a fan of them slowing the cars down, to be honest with the Xfinity, because they're not going really that fast anyway, so this is basically going to reduce speed of the NASCAR Xfinity Series when it comes to that situation. So that is a little frustrating, to be honest with you, that they are reducing the speed on the Super Speedway package for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I get trying to basically be a little more safe, but you can't even bump draft, so it's already a little more safer than normal when it comes to Super Speedway racing. I wish they would bring the lock bumper situation back, but I think it's frustrating they are reducing. I think that's not even really a big issue. I don't understand that overall, but they are reducing the Super Speedway package. I just really don't understand why they're doing that, to be perfectly honest with you. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Road America and their sellout crowd from this past weekend. It was reported by Adam Stern yesterday that it says that today's Cup race crowd was the largest for a motorsports event in Wisconsin since at least the mid-20th century. This, again, was reported by Adam Stern. I think that is, if that is the case, then wow, that is historic, to be honest with you, if that is the largest crowd. I think they said they had over 100,000. They didn't give the exact number, but they said that they had over 100,000. I believe that this is also the second largest crowd in not just in motorsports, but I think across country. I think the Indianapolis 500 still holds that crown with 137,500 fans that were allowed in the Indianapolis 500. The fact that this is the largest crowd since the mid-20th century shows that I think Road America deserves to say. The fact that so many fans turned up to that event. Road America has been one of the most hyped up events overall. So I think it's great to see that Road America had a really awesome sellout crowd, and I think that they 100% should bring us back next year. And we're going to talk about that in a second, but I think it's great to see that Road America had a sellout crowd here for that event. Speaking of which, now we're going to talk about what I just talked about. We're going to talk about Road America as it is being currently advertised by the track. They are advertising ticket sales for next year. There's no set dates besides Daytona and Phoenix for 2022, but intent would be to come back on July 4th week next year. As I just mentioned, it's only been two racetracks have only 100% been announced. Daytona 500 week and the championship are the only two races that have been announced. But it looks like that Road America is going to be coming back next year in 2022. And like I mentioned, I think that this should be the new 4th of July tradition. I think a lot of fans would like to go back to Daytona. Don't get me wrong, for the 4th of July tradition, since that had been it from 2000, like 1960 up to 2019. But I think that if we have to start a new tradition, I think Road America is definitely the place to go to for the 4th of July tradition. I think it definitely should be in consideration for that. So I hope it does become the regular tradition. I hope it does become a race we come back for years to come. I think the racing also this past weekend, some people thought it was bad, but I personally thought that the racing was really, really good this weekend for both races, the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. And I think just the Xfinity and Cup Series, excuse me. And I think that the fan was really, really good for the weekend overall. And it's great to see that Road America is probably going to be coming back for 2022. Really excited about that overall for sure. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Derek Griffin. As Derek Griffin is going to be making his NASCAR Truck Series debut later this year at Gateway, driving the number 51 for Kyle Busch Motorsports. A lot of you probably do not recognize the name. Derek Griffin is a very, very talented late model racer. He currently races in the ARCA Remax Menard Series. He's done very well in the past in those races. He's contended for top 5s and top 10s. He's ran a couple times so far for the Bill Venturini team this year. He's had some decent runs overall with that organization. I think he got involved in a crash earlier this year that kind of unfortunately impacted him. But from what I've seen and what I think of drivers that could potentially be superstars in the Cup Series even, I think Derek Griffin has that potential to take it to the next step. Now, what are my expectations overall when it comes to Derek Griffin? I think that Derek Griffin, overall, his goal is to just gain as much experience as he can, do the best he can overall, and I think the goal for him should be potentially get a top 10. I think if he finished in the top 5 or even the top 10, would be really, really impressive for a first start and would catch a lot of eyes and ears. This car has capabilities of winning, but I think overall for Derek Griffin, a top 10 run at Worldwide Technology Raceway and Gateway would be really, really good. And I'm really happy that he is getting an opportunity to race in the NASCAR Truck Series and making his first ever NASCAR Truck Series race. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Rickard Racing. As was reported earlier this week on Wednesday by Chris Knight, that Rickard Racing said their cars are not for sale at the moment. Now, he's also mentioned that they have received a lot of offers in regards to the cars, but they are not planning to sell them. In my opinion, I'm really kind of disappointed in Rickard Racing that they don't want to sell it. I understand that they want to keep the money and they want to be really, really competitive. If you really want to be competitive, why not just sell a couple of your cars? Why not just sell at least 1 or even 2 of your cars and only focus on maybe 2 or even 3 cars? Because the fact that they have 4 cars, I think this is the reason they're overall really, really struggling. My personal opinion, I think they do need to drop down to maybe 1 or 2 cars next year. I think 1, they'll be more competitive organization, and 2, I think they'll show a lot of speed. I personally think they need to drop it. I hope NASCAR does go to the bottom 3 rule next year. I think they're going to have to with how many teams are trying to search for charters right now. I think that they are going to basically have to down those teams in the bottom 3 for 3s because I think they're going to have to do the bottom 3 rules here. But I'm really surprised that Rickard Racing is not deciding to drop their charters. I'm a little disappointed in them that for sure, but it is what it is, and we'll probably see a couple Rickard cars. But I personally think that they need to basically sell charters. I guess if they're going to have to pull basically what what Trackhouse did earlier this year, I think in my personal opinion, they need to downsize next year to 2 or 3 cars. I think it'll be more competitive organization. I think they said they want to be competitive, right? Well, let's go ahead and downsize, but that's just my honest opinion on that. And now we're going to go jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the iRacing Pro Invitational Series. As was reported by Adam Stern, that he says that NASCAR informed the industry that it has discontinued the iRacing Pro Invitational Series for the rest of 2021, though it could return in the future of special events. He also said that as the U.S. emerged from the pandemic, viewership in it waned and interest in the industry waned as well. Honestly, I'm very happy that the iRacing Pro Invitational is done, to be honest with you. I was very surprised that they even really brought it back this year, except maybe for those one-off events. I personally was not a fan of them bringing it back, and there was a lot of issues with the event. You had really 3 strikes for me that really, to me, kind of lost my respect for the Pro Invitational Series. Number 1, you had the Denny Hill debacle, where basically they couldn't even run as many races as they wanted to do because of the sponsorship situation. The fact they couldn't originally run, I think it was Bristol Dirt, they had to basically go in a 2-car, but the damage was done for the team, and they're not running as many races now because of that, and a lot of people were not very happy with the fact that the guy that had big attending could race, but Clint Boyer, who never was even really a factor, or Dale Jr. were in those events, I think that was really frustrating. The second reason that a lot of people lost strikes was due to the other situations. The fan vote with Jesse Iwuji, the fan vote was already in the debacle itself. If you really wanted Jesse Iwuji to be in this, you should have just put him in the events and never had a fan vote, in my honest opinion. And then the third reason was the disaster of the Chicago street course race. I was looking forward to that, and only like 15 cars finished the event, and I think the broadcast at points got a little bit too stupid and a little bit too ridiculous. And drivers complaining overall about it. I think that if they are to do this, I think if they are to maybe bring something similar back for iRacing, I think special events definitely would work. I think 1 event every single year for iRacing would be really good. And bring it at a track that is not on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Bring it at a track like Brands Hatch. Bring it at a track, like I said, that's not on the NASCAR schedule currently. Maybe like Nürburgring. Maybe like Le Mans. Go to a racetrack where NASCAR Cup Series does not race, in my honest opinion. I think that would really, in my opinion, keep the intrigue in this event. But the problem was they went to tracks that we were already going to, and 2 of them already have practice qualifying. So I think that overall did affect the outcome of the iRacing Pro Invitational Series, keeping its longevity. And I think it honestly needed to go. I think that, I'm really happy they made the decision overall. I think some fans are definitely going to be upset about it, but I think a majority of fans are going to be really happy that the iRacing Pro Invitational is no longer going to be a thing after this year. So at least we're done with the iRacing Pro Invitational. I think this they said they're going to have 10 races, but the fact they never really had a chance to get another race is great to see, and we will no longer see the iRacing Pro Invitational. And now we're going to jump on to the major stories of today's episode, as we're going to first talk about Erik Jones. As it was reported yesterday, that Bob Iger reported that Erik Jones says he has had talks with Rich Petty Motorsports about picking up his option. He said he's happy driving for the team and working on things to get better results, but sounded like where he lands in 2022 is currently still uncertain at the moment. I honestly thought that Erik Jones had a 2-year deal. The fact that 2022 looks like it is an option year for him is kind of frustrating, to be honest with you, because it seems like every year Erik Jones is basically in position to basically not having even a close to an opportunity to run more than 1 year with the team. He's always been uncertain throughout his career. I mean, for the first couple years of JGR, we know if he was going to be returning 2018 to 2019. I think 2019 he was a free agent. He had a really good end of the year there. But he really struggled and had bad points. And in 2020, he really, really struggled and lost his ride due to the situation with Levi Family Racing shutting down. If it wasn't for the situation with Levi Family Racing, I think Erik Jones would still be right now at Joe Gibbs Racing in 2021. But you look at the performances here from Erik Jones. He's had a couple top 10s, but other than that, he's kind of struggled. He's lower in the points. I think RPM's not getting as good of funding as they did. And I think that's why they're overall kind of back to where they used to be before last year, where they got all when Bubba Wallace had the team. They were getting a lot better funding, and I think RCR definitely was helping the team a lot more than they are now, which, again, it is frustrating. Erik Jones could be free agent. What happens to Erik Jones' future, though, is a big question if he doesn't return to Rich Petty Motorsports. I mean, there's been talks RPM maybe switching to Toyota. Maybe he goes back with them. But I think he could go to maybe Team Penske, perhaps, but I really think it's either going to be Austin or Matty D. There's been talks about that going on behind the scenes. He maybe could go to RCR, but, I mean, there's only 2 cars right there, and I think Reddick and Austin are still going to be back there next year, so I'm not sure where the future leads for Erik Jones at the moment. I really do hope Erik Jones, however, does get that opportunity to go back to this team, and let's just hope that things do overall go better for him. And yeah, I mean, hopefully the performance does get better, and maybe he'll go to 20. Maybe he could go to 2311 Racing. Kurt Busch does go to Trackhouse. We'll talk about it in a minute. Maybe he goes to Trackhouse. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but his future looks a little bit grim at the moment, and hopefully he'll get an opportunity to go to a better team going forward in 2022. And now we're going to jump on to the next major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Denny Hill. As Denny Hill says, Trackhouse Racing purchase does not impact the hunt for a second charter. He said, I thought it was a great move by Justin and Trackhouse, guys. Did anybody really think Ganassi was for sale? I don't think so. I also they had relationships driven with him before, so I'm sure he has had dialogue. I think it's good for the sport. A little sad to see Chip go. I love Chip. We lose some and gain some with that deal. Denny Hill has basically said that he is planning on expanding 2311 Racing in the 2022 season. He said that he will do it with or without a charter, but he said he would prefer having a charter for that second one or not. So what happens in regards to 2311's expansion if they are to expand? I still think Kurt Busch is still the most likely to go over to that team in 2022, but things could really, really change. Maybe they go with Ross Chastain in 2022. Ross Chastain may not go to Trackhouse Racing in 2022. Ross Chastain would provide a lot, and it wouldn't be like the biggest guidance overall for that team. But if Ross Chastain, maybe someone from the Toyota plan, maybe like a John Hunter Nemechek, maybe a Harrison Burr, maybe a Brandon Jones, Daniel Hemrick, or maybe, like I said, even Kurt Busch could be the leading candidates for those rides. I'm not sure. I do think 2311 is going to expand next year. I think it's still most likely going to be who I mentioned a second ago will probably end up being the driver that is likely to go over to 2311 Racing and take that second charter. We'll have to keep an eye on the story for sure. But we were expecting this team to definitely expand in 2022. I really hope it does happen because I would like to see 2311 expand. I think that they also, when they do get a new shop, so they're supposed to be moving to a new shop at Huntersville, North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. If they move to that shop, I think that they will perform better, and I think in their second year, this team will become a better organization. I do think the future of 2311 is really, really promising, and we'll see what happens as time goes on. But they are saying that they are still in the hunt to get a second charter going forward, and hopefully things are going to work out very, very good for Denny Hamlin and 2311 Racing, and they will get that second charter, but it'll probably expand in 2022 regardless. Drivers unknown at the moment, but we'll have to keep an eye on that story for sure. And now we're going to go jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we are talking about Kurt Busch. As Kurt Busch says, he's already had conversations with Justin Marks before the announcement of Chip Ganassi's Racing's acquisition and Trackhouse buying it up. He says it's going to have a different name with different branding, and I'm familiar with everyone at Ganassi. So it changes the complexion of what we've talked already and what we still need to talk about. Kurt Busch has basically the #1 free agent currently at the moment when it comes to teams that are looking to buy him. And he's either, in my opinion, going to end up at he's either going to end up at Trackhouse Racing or he's going to end up at 2311 Racing. Why now? A team like these new organizations would, regardless of who they get, would benefit a ton from this. And there is a chance Kurt Busch, like I said, could end up at Trackhouse Racing. And I think it would make a lot of sense if he is to go to Trackhouse Racing for a couple reasons. Number one, he knows a lot of people that work at Chip Ganassi Racing. He probably end up being with the same crew chief on it. Maybe he also get the same number as well. And it would bring still that funding. Now, I don't think Trackhouse Racing really needs a lot of funding to keep them up and running, but I think that bringing Kurt Busch over and keeping him in the Chevy plant would make Chevy a little bit stronger. I don't think Chevy would struggle without Kurt Busch, don't get me wrong, but I think that bringing Kurt Busch into this team would definitely help a lot more. Plus, he'd be able to guide Daniel Suarez. I don't think Daniel Suarez needs as much guidance as a driver like Bubba Wallace does, but I do think that Kurt Busch would bring a lot to this team overall and would help the organization overall and be great for that team overall. The other one team is 2311 Racing, and Kurt Busch is still most likely linked over to going to 2311 Racing in the 2022 season. There's still a lot of talk about that right now going on, and I think it would be better for Kurt, in my personal opinion, to go over to 2311 Racing. I think that it would benefit that team overall. 2311, I think, would get up to speed a lot more quicker as an organization. And I think that it would help them performing a lot better. And I think it also show that, like I said, I think Bubba Wallace has potential to be a superstar in NASCAR, but I think he needs that veteran guidance, and Bubba Wallace has never had a teammate. So personally, I still think Kurt Busch is most likely going to end up at 2311, but there is potential that Kurt Busch could be going to Trackhouse in 2022. Regardless, like I said, I think that whatever team Kurt Busch does go to in the 2022 season, I think it is going to benefit that team a lot more. And I think that team is going to see, because if Kurt Busch does go to 2311 Racing, we're going to have a really young Chevy plant. As the oldest driver of the team is going to be Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who's only 33 years old, by the way. And, I mean, you would like to have that veteran presence at that team. So we'll have to keep an eye on and see what happens going forward. But there is a chance that Kurt Busch will end up, and I think he'll regardless will either end up at Trackhouse Racing or 2311 Racing in 2022. We'll keep an eye on that story for sure, but it will end up at one of those teams in the 2022 season. So, anyway, that is here today's NASCAR news video. And thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications so you're notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Support page as well. Link description below for that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. What team do you think Kurt Busch will end up in 2022? Do you think he ends up at Trackhouse Racing, or do you think he ends up at 2311? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Denny Hill saying that they will expand in 2022, regardless if they have a chart or not? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR content. Take care, everybody.